I still remember the exact sound my heels made on the church tiles that day, like tiny cracks forming in my heart with every step. Click, click, click. Each one echoed louder in my chest than the last, a sharp little reminder that I was walking forward even when every part of me wanted to turn back and wait just a few more minutes. The aisle stretched endlessly ahead, lined with white roses I'd picked myself because Mom said she was too busy to help. I had spent the previous afternoon in the florist shop, my fingers pricked by thorns as I chose each stem carefully, imagining how they would look against the old wooden pews. The air smelled like vanilla candles and fresh rain from the storm outside, that clean, earthy scent mixing with the faint waxiness of the candles flickering in their holders. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the bouquet. The ribbons tied around the stems felt slippery against my palms, damp from the nervous sweat I couldn't control. I was 28, wearing the dress I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl, the soft ivory lace that hugged my waist just right, the train that whispered behind me like a secret, and all I could think was, she has to come. She's my mom. This is the one day she can't miss. My name is Elena, and for most of my life, I believed family was supposed to be the one thing that never let you down. That belief had been stitched into me from the earliest days I could remember, like the faded quilt Mom kept on the end of my bed in that little blue house on Maple Street. It was a modest two-story home with peeling paint on the shutters and a front porch that creaked when you stepped on the third board from the left. But to me, back then, it was the whole world. Growing up there, it was just Mom, my older sister Claire, and me after Dad left when I was 7. I still recall the night he packed his bags, the way the screen door slammed so hard the glass rattled, the sound of his truck engine fading down the street while Mom stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, her face a mask of steel even as her eyes glistened. She didn't cry in front of us, not once. Instead, she turned around, wiped her hands on her apron, and said, "Girls, we're going to be just fine. Better than fine. We're going to do better than he ever did." After that, Mom became this fortress, beautiful, sharp, always perfectly put together. Her dark hair was always swept into a neat bun or falling in controlled waves, her makeup flawless even after pulling double shifts at the diner and then the office downtown. She worked 2 jobs without complaint, kept the lawn immaculate by mowing it herself every Saturday morning in old jeans and a sun hat, and told us every night at dinner that we had to do better than she did. The kitchen table was our battlefield of sorts, Claire and I sitting across from her while she served meatloaf or spaghetti, her voice steady as she listed expectations. Better, to her, always meant money, status, the right last name. She'd point to the newspaper clippings of successful people she taped to the fridge and say, "See, they didn't settle, they aimed high." Love, that was for people who could afford to be stupid, she'd add with a bitter laugh that never quite reached her eyes. I'd nod along, but inside, I'd wonder what it would feel like if she ever hugged me without it feeling like a reward for good grades. Those early years after Dad left shaped everything. I was the sensitive one, the dreamer who collected wildflowers in the backyard and pressed them between the pages of my diary. Claire was the practical sister, 2 years older, already making lists of colleges and scholarships by the time she was 12. Mom praised Claire constantly, her straight A's, her debate team trophies, the way she carried herself like she already belonged in boardrooms. Me, I was the one who got the gentle but firm reminders. "Elena, stop doodling and focus on your math. Pretty pictures won't pay the bills." Yet on quiet evenings when Mom was too exhausted to cook, she'd let me curl up next to her on the couch while we watched old movies. Those were the moments I lived for, the rare cracks in her fortress where I could pretend we were just a normal family, laughing at silly romances where the girl always got the perfect ending. As I grew older, the comparisons intensified. By high school, Claire was dating the son of a local businessman, a boy with polished shoes and plans for law school. Mom would light up when he came over, offering him coffee and asking about his future. When I brought home my first boyfriend, a shy artist from art class with paint-stained fingers, Mom's smile tightened. "He seems nice," she said later, washing dishes with her back to me. "But nice doesn't put food on the table, Alina. You need someone who can provide stability." I'd retreat to my room, sketching dresses in my notebook and dreaming of a love that felt warm instead of calculated. The little blue house started to feel smaller, the walls closing in with unspoken rules about what success looked like. College was supposed to be my fresh start, but even there, Mom's voice echoed in my head. I studied interior design part-time while working shifts at a campus cafe, coming home on weekends to help with bills. Claire graduated with honors and landed a paralegal job that quickly turned into law school. Mom threw her a celebration dinner with a cake from the fancy bakery downtown. For me, it was a quiet, good job on that B+ in your design class. Keep pushing. The ache of never quite measuring up settled deep, but I pushed it down, telling myself that one day I'd make her see me, the real me, not just the version that fell short. Those early years after Dad left shaped everything. I was the sensitive one, the dreamer who collected wildflowers in the backyard and pressed them between the pages of my diary. Claire was the practical sister, 2 years older, already making lists of colleges and scholarships by the time she was 12. Mom praised Claire constantly, her straight A's, her debate team trophies, the way she carried herself like she already belonged in boardrooms. Me, I was the one who got the gentle but firm reminders. "Elena, stop doodling and focus on your math. Pretty pictures won't pay the bills." Yet on quiet evenings when Mom was too exhausted to cook, she'd let me curl up next to her on the couch while we watched old movies. Those were the moments I lived for, the rare cracks in her fortress where I could pretend we were just a normal family, laughing at silly romances where the girl always got the perfect ending. As I grew older, the comparisons intensified. By high school, Claire was dating the son of a local businessman, a boy with polished shoes and plans for law school. Mom would light up when he came over, offering him coffee and asking about his future. When I brought home my first boyfriend, a shy artist from art class with paint-stained fingers, Mom's smile tightened. "He seems nice," she said later, washing dishes with her back to me. "But nice doesn't put food on the table, Alina. You need someone who can provide stability." I'd retreat to my room, sketching dresses in my notebook and dreaming of a love that felt warm instead of calculated. The little blue house started to feel smaller, the walls closing in with unspoken rules about what success looked like. College was supposed to be my fresh start, but even there, Mom's voice echoed in my head. I studied interior design part-time while working shifts at a campus cafe, coming home on weekends to help with bills. Claire graduated with honors and landed a paralegal job that quickly turned into law school. Mom threw her a celebration dinner with a cake from the fancy bakery downtown. For me, it was a quiet, good job on that B+ in your design class. Keep pushing. The ache of never quite measuring up settled deep, but I pushed it down, telling myself that one day I'd make her see me, the real me, not just the version that fell short. Then, at 24, everything shifted in the most unexpected way. I met Marcus when I was working the morning shift at the tiny coffee shop downtown, the one with mismatched mugs at a chalkboard menu that changed daily. It was a rainy Tuesday, the kind where the world outside looked gray and blurred through the steamed windows. He came in soaked from the rain, water dripping from his dark hair onto his faded flannel shirt, and ordered a black coffee in a voice that was low and steady, like it had weathered its own storms. When he smiled at me, really smiled, with crinkles at the corners of his eyes, it was like the storm outside didn't exist anymore. His hands were calloused from carpentry work, rough in a way that spoke of honest labor, the kind of man Mom would have crossed the street to avoid because he didn't fit her vision of the right kind. But there was something about him that pulled me in immediately. He tipped generously even though he looked like he couldn't afford to, and when he thanked me, his eyes held mine a second longer than necessary. Our first real conversation happened a week later when he returned during a slow hour. I was wiping tables, and he offered to help move a heavy chair for me. We talked about everything and nothing, his latest project building custom bookshelves for an old library, my secret dream of one day designing spaces that felt like homes instead of showrooms. He told me about losing his mom young, how she'd taught him to build things with his hands because furniture outlasts words. I found myself opening up about the nights I cried after Mom would compare me to Claire again. Claire, the straight-A student, Claire, the one with the ambitious boyfriend, Claire who got it right. Marcus listened without interrupting, his coffee growing cold as he leaned on the counter, nodding like my words were the only thing that mattered in that moment. There was no judgment, no subtle suggestions that I should aim higher, just presence. Our first date was simple and perfect in its imperfection. A picnic in the park with sandwiches I'd made the night before, turkey and cheese on slightly stale bread because that's all I had in the fridge, and a blanket that smelled faintly like the inside of his old truck, a mix of sawdust and engine oil. We sat under a sprawling oak tree as clouds threatened more rain, sharing stories until the sky opened up and we ran laughing to shelter under a gazebo. He told me more about his mom then, how building things helped him feel connected to her memory, creating permanence in a world that had taken her too soon. I shared the heavier parts of my childhood, the way Mom's fortress sometimes felt like a wall keeping me out, the pressure to succeed that made every achievement feel conditional. When the rain eased, he walked me home, and under the streetlight outside my apartment, he kissed me. It was soft at first, then deeper. And my heart did this little flip I still feel when I think about it even now. It was messy, real, the kind of love that doesn't look perfect in photos, but feels like home in the quiet moments. The way his flannel smelled when I leaned into him, the warmth of his hand on my lower back. We dated for 3 years, and every month deepened what we had. Marcus wasn't flashy. He showed up consistently. He'd surprise me with small pieces of furniture he'd built, a side table for my apartment, a shelf for my design books. On weekends, we'd drive out to flea markets, hunting for reclaimed wood he could turn into something new. Mom knew about him early on, of course. I'd mentioned him casually over one of our strained Sunday dinners. Her reaction was immediate and cutting. She set her fork down slowly. "A carpenter? Elena, after everything I've sacrificed so you could aim higher?" She listed reasons why it wouldn't last. The long hours, the uncertain income, the lack of polish. Claire nodded along, adding something about how important financial security was in a partnership. I defended him quietly at first, then more fiercely as time passed. But the seed of doubt she planted stayed with me, whispering during our happiest moments. Despite that, our relationship grew stronger. We moved into a tiny apartment together after 2 years, a one-bedroom with creaky floors and a kitchen barely big enough for 2. Marcus filled it with pieces he made, a coffee table from pallet wood, a headboard carved with simple lines. He proposed on the back porch of that apartment one warm evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in pinks and oranges, and the neighbor's dog was barking in the distance. He got down on one knee with a simple ring he'd made himself from an old silver spoon his grandmother had left him, reshaping it with careful hands into something delicate and meaningful. "Elena," he said, voice cracking with emotion, "I don't have much, but I'll spend every day making sure you never feel alone again." I said yes before he even finished the sentence, tears streaming down my face as laughter bubbled up. The neighbor's dog kept barking like it was cheering us on. Pure joy flooded me in that moment, the kind that makes your chest feel too full. We celebrated with cheap takeout on the porch, dreaming out loud about the life we'd build together. Planning the wedding should have been magical, but Mom's shadow loomed large. She never helped with anything. When I called to ask about her thoughts on colors or the guest list, she'd say she was busy or change the subject to Claire's latest promotion. The week before the wedding, she sent one text, "I have a work thing. I'll try to make it." Try? Like my wedding was an optional dentist appointment. I stared at that message for hours, rereading it until the words blurred. Part of me wanted to call and beg her to prioritize me just this once. The other part, the part tired of chasing her approval, stayed silent. The days leading up to the ceremony were a whirlwind of nerves and quiet hope. I spent hours in the bridal boutique for final fittings, twirling in front of the mirror while imagining Mom's face softening with pride when she saw me. My best friend helped with decorations, stringing fairy lights and arranging centerpieces, but my mind kept drifting back to childhood memories. I remembered being 8 years old, playing dress-up in Mom's old clothes, pretending I was walking down an aisle while she watched from the doorway with a tired smile. "One day you'll have a beautiful wedding," she'd said then. I clung to that memory like a lifeline. The morning of the ceremony dawned gray and stormy, the rain tapping insistently against the windows of the small bridal suite at the church. I kept checking my phone, heart racing every time it buzzed with a text from a friend or a vendor. Nothing from Mom. My hands trembled as I applied my mascara, blinking back tears that threatened to ruin it. The dress felt both heavy and weightless as my best friend helped me into it, zipping it up with gentle hands. "She doesn't deserve you today," she whispered while fixing my veil, her voice soft but firm. But I still hoped. I paced the small room, the scent of my perfume mixing with the vanilla candles someone had lit. Outside, thunder rumbled, mirroring the storm inside me. I pictured Mom rushing in at the last minute, apologizing, hugging me tight. "I wouldn't miss this for the world," she'd say. I rehearsed my smile in the mirror, the one that said everything was okay, even if it wasn't. When it was time, I stood at the back of the church, bouquet in hand, listening to the music swell. The aisle looked longer than ever, the white roses I'd chosen glowing softly under the lights. Guests turned to look, smiling expectantly, but the seat where Mom should have been sat empty, a glaring void among the filled pews. My chest tightened. I took the first step anyway. Click, click, click. The sound of my heels on the tiles became a rhythm I clung to, each one carrying me closer to Marcus waiting at the altar. He looked at me with tears in his eyes already, his simple suit fitting him perfectly, his hands clasped in front of him like he was holding back from running to me. His steady gaze made the empty spot where Mom should have been feel almost bearable. Almost. I walked down that aisle alone, smiling through the ache that threatened to swallow me whole. The rain outside intensified, drumming on the roof like applause mixed with sorrow. Guests whispered, but I focused on Marcus, his warm brown eyes, the way his shoulders relaxed when I reached him. We said our vows under strings of fairy lights that twinkled like stars brought indoors. Marcus promised to build me a life with his own 2 hands, his voice thick with emotion as he slipped the ring on my finger. I promised to never stop choosing him, my words catching as happy tears slipped down my cheeks. The kiss tasted salt from those tears, sweet and grounding. Everyone clapped, the sound filling the church and drowning out the rain for a moment. But in the receiving line afterward, when people asked where my mom was, I felt my stomach twist into knots. I lied and said she was sick, forcing a bright smile while my heart fractured a little more with each polite nod. I didn't want their pity on my wedding day. I wanted to celebrate the love I'd found, the man who had chosen me without conditions. That night in our honeymoon suite, cheap but ours, with a view of the city lights sparkling through the rain-streaked window, I curled against Marcus's chest while the storm continued outside. He stroked my hair gently, his fingers tracing soothing patterns on my scalp. "We don't need her approval, baby. We've got each other," he murmured, his voice a rumble I felt in my bones. I believed him in that moment, wrapped in his warmth, the sheets tangled around us. But deep down, a quiet little voice whispered that maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't enough to make her show up. Maybe the fortress she'd built had no room for someone like me, someone who chose messy, real love over the polished version she demanded. What I didn't know that day was that her absence wasn't the end of the heartbreak. It was only the beginning of something that would force me to rebuild everything I thought I knew about love, about family, and about the woman I was becoming. The first year of marriage was beautiful and brutal at the same time. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like fresh cut wood because Marcus was always building something for us. I worked doubles at the coffee shop and started taking online interior design courses at night. Marcus picked up extra carpentry jobs. Some nights we'd eat ramen on the floor and laugh until we cried because we were so broke but so stupidly in love. He'd pull me into his lap and kiss the worry lines between my brows, whispering, "We're building our forever, Alina, one nail at a time." Mom didn't call. Not on my birthday, not on Christmas. Claire texted once. Mom says you made your choice. The silence carved a hole in me I didn't know how to fill. I'd lie awake some nights, replaying every dinner where she'd praised Claire's smart fiancé while side-eyeing Marcus's work boots. The pain wasn't loud. It was this constant ache, like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it still hurts. Then came the twist I never saw coming. 2 years in, I got a call from a local boutique hotel. They'd seen the mood boards I'd posted online and wanted me to redesign their lobby on a tiny budget. I poured everything into it. Late nights with Marcus sanding reclaimed wood beside me, his hands guiding mine, the way he'd kiss my neck when I got frustrated and say, "You've got this, love." The project went viral on design blogs. Suddenly, I had clients, a small studio, then a bigger one. Marcus started his own custom furniture line. We were still scraping by, but the dream felt possible. Mom found out through a mutual friend. She sent a single email. "Congrats on the little hobby. Don't forget where you came from." No question about how we were doing. No, "I'm proud." Just that. It stung worse than silence. The real gut punch came on our 3rd anniversary. I was 5 months pregnant and terrified and glowing all at once. We'd lost the baby the year before, early miscarriage that left me curled on the bathroom floor while Marcus held me and cried with me. This time felt different. I wanted to share the news. I drove to Mom's house with a tiny onesie in my purse, heart hammering like I was 17 again, asking for permission to go out. She opened the door, looked at my belly, and said, "Well, I hope you're prepared for how hard this is going to be without the right support." No hug, no excitement, just a reminder that I'd chosen wrong. I drove home in the rain, hands shaking on the wheel, and when Marcus saw my face, he didn't ask questions. He just wrapped me in his arms on the couch, the same couch he'd built from scrap lumber, and let me sob until I fell asleep. That night, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger yet, but this quiet resolve. I will never make my child feel the way she makes me feel. The business exploded after that. A celebrity designer reposted my work. Orders poured. We moved into a small house with a yard, then another. I designed a line of sustainable furniture with Marcus. We called it Roots and Wings because that's what we were building. Roots that couldn't be shaken, wings that could carry us anywhere. Money started to mean choices, not survival. But the ache from Mom's approval never fully left. I'd catch myself wondering what she'd say if she saw our growing success. Then came the secret that almost broke me. Claire got drunk one Thanksgiving and let it slip. Mom had been in debt for years, quietly borrowing from friends, too proud to ask us for help. She'd ignored my wedding because she was terrified I'd see through her perfect image and realize she wasn't the unbreakable woman she pretended to be. The woman who lectured me about aiming higher was drowning. Part of me wanted to run to her. The other part, the part that still felt the empty church pews, felt something colder bloom. Not hate, just clarity. Marcus saw it in my eyes one night while we sat on the porch of our second house, fireflies blinking in the dark. He took my hand and said, "You don't owe her your light, Alina. You've already given her enough." His voice was soft, but his love felt like armor. We made love under the stars that night, slow and desperate. The kind of night where you remember why you chose each other through every storm. I fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat and woke up knowing I was done shrinking. We poured everything into one last risk, a waterfront property we could flip into our dream home. I designed every inch. Marcus built the custom pieces. It took 18 months of 16-hour days, takeout dinners, and moments where I'd cry in the car from exhaustion and he'd bring me coffee and hold me until I could breathe again. But we did it. A $2.5 million modern farmhouse on 3 acres, wide windows, reclaimed oak floors, the kind of kitchen where you could picture Sunday mornings with kids running around. Our forever home. I posted one photo on social media, just one. The exterior at golden hour, Marcus kissing my forehead on the porch, my hand on my growing belly. I didn't tag Mom. I didn't need to. 3 days later, my phone rang. Mom, voice tight, almost sweet. Hello, Elena, honey. I saw the pictures. We need to talk. Family meeting at your new place. Next Saturday. I'll bring Claire. I stared at the phone after she hung up, heart racing the same way it had in that empty church. But this time, the racing felt different, stronger, like the moment before you realize the storm has passed and you're still standing. Until everything changed, I realized that the person I trusted most to love me unconditionally was the one who'd tried to keep me small, but I was done staying small. The week leading up to that Saturday felt like walking a tightrope over everything I'd built. I kept replaying old memories, Mom's sharp comments at family dinners, the way she'd dismiss Marcus as temporary, the empty chair at every milestone. But I also remembered the little girl who used to crawl into her bed after Dad left, begging her to stop working and just hold me. That little girl was still somewhere inside me, whispering that maybe this time would be different. Marcus noticed the tension. One evening, he found me standing in the nursery we'd just finished painting soft sage green. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, hands gently cradling my belly. His murmured words grounded me, but they didn't erase the knot in my chest. I spent hours that week walking through the house, touching the surfaces we'd created together. The smooth walnut kitchen island, the built-in bookshelves lined with design books and baby board books, the porch swing that creaked softly in the breeze. Every corner told our story. And for the first time, I saw clearly that Mom's absence had pushed me to become someone stronger, someone who no longer waited for permission to shine. Saturday arrived with that perfect, crisp fall air that smells like possibility. The house looked like a magazine spread. Sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows, fresh flowers on the island, Marcus's hands steady on my lower back as we waited. I wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, nothing flashy. I didn't need to prove anything with clothes anymore. Mom's car pulled up. She stepped out in her usual, perfectly pressed blouse, but I noticed the new lines around her eyes, the way her hands trembled just a little as she clutched her purse. Claire followed, looking uncomfortable. They walked through the front door and stopped. The silence was so loud I could hear the grandfather clock Marcus built ticking in the hallway. Mom's eyes swept the open living room, the custom beams, the view of the lake. Her voice came out small. "Elena, this is beautiful. You did all this?" I smiled, calm in a way I hadn't been in years. We did. Every nail, every brushstroke. No one handed it to us. We sat at the long dining table I'd designed, the one big enough for the family I was choosing, not the one I was born into. Mom started with the script I expected, how proud she was, how she'd always known I had it in me, how family should stick together. Then the ask. Quiet at first. "Things have been tight lately. The house needs repairs, medical bills from last year. I was hoping maybe you could help your old mom out, just until I get back on my feet." Claire shifted in her seat, eyes on the table. I felt Marcus's thumb rub gentle circles on my knee under the table, our secret language that said, "I'm right here." I took a breath that tasted like freedom. "Mom," I said, voice steady but soft, "do you remember my wedding day? The way the rain smelled? How I walked down the aisle alone because you had a work thing? I waited for you. I kept checking the door like a little girl who still believed her mom would choose her." Her face went pale. "Elena, I was going through—" "I know," I cut in gently. "Claire told me about the debt, about how scared you were. And for a long time, I carried that hurt like it was mine to fix. But I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to tell you the truth." I slid an envelope across the table. Inside were two things: a photo from my wedding, the one of me and Marcus kissing while the empty pews sat behind us, and a copy of the deed to this house, titled only in my and Marcus's names. "You taught me that love had to be earned with status and money," I said, "but Marcus taught me love is built, day by day, even when it's hard and messy and no one's watching. I cried in this man's arms more times than I can count. He held me through the miscarriage, through the doubt, through every time I wondered if I was broken because my own mother couldn't show up. And we still built this, without you. Mom's eyes filled with tears, real ones. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I was so wrong." I reached across and took her hand. First time in years, it didn't feel like reaching for someone who'd already let go. "I know, and I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. It doesn't mean you get to move into my life like none of it happened. We can have coffee sometimes. You can know your grandchild when he or she arrives. But this house, this life, it's ours. You don't get to call a meeting and rewrite the story." Claire started crying quietly. Mom looked around again, really looked, and for the first time, I saw something like awe mixed with regret in her eyes. Marcus spoke then, voice low and kind. "Ma'am, we're not closing the door forever, but doors have locks for a reason. We decide who walks through ours now." We sat in silence for a long minute, the kind that feels like healing even when it hurts. Mom nodded, wiped her eyes, and stood. She hugged me at the door, awkward, trembling, real. "I love you, Elena," she said. "I always have. I just didn't know how to show it right." "I know," I whispered back. "Now you do." After they left, Marcus pulled me onto the porch swing he'd built with his own hands. The sun was setting over the lake, painting everything gold. He rested his forehead against mine, hand on my belly where our baby kicked like it knew today was important. He asked, "You okay?" I smiled, the kind of smile that comes after you've walked through fire and come out warmer. I'm more than okay. I'm free. That evening, after the dishes were cleared and the house grew quiet again, I stood at the kitchen window watching the last light fade over the water. For the first time in years, the ache in my chest felt lighter. Not gone, but transformed. It no longer felt like a wound I had to hide. It felt like a scar that proved I had survived. I thought about the little blue house on Maple Street, about the version of me who once believed love had to be earned through perfection. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had learned that real strength isn't pretending you don't need anyone. It's knowing exactly who deserves your heart and protecting it fiercely. Marcus came up behind me, sliding his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder the way he always did. "Proud of you," he whispered in my hair. I turned in his arms and kissed him slowly, tasting the years of shared struggle and triumph on his lips. Later that night, as we lay in bed with the windows open to the cool fall air, I placed his hand on my belly and felt our baby move again. In that moment, I made a silent promise. I would never make my child chase my love. I would show up, even on the hard days, even when I was tired or scared or imperfect. I would build for them what Mom never could, a safe place where they never had to wonder if they were enough. I finally understood. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't screaming or cutting someone off forever. It's becoming the woman they never thought you could be. It's building a life so full of love and light that their absence stops defining you. It's choosing to keep your heart open enough to forgive, but wise enough to protect what you've earned. My mom taught me what love wasn't. Marcus taught me what it is. And this mansion, this marriage, this baby on the way, they're proof that the best revenge is simply refusing to let anyone dim your light, while still leaving the porch light on for the ones brave enough to earn their way back. If you've ever had someone who was supposed to love you walk away when you needed them most, I see you. You're not broken. You're becoming. And one day, you'll look around at the life you built with your own two hands and realize the person who hurt you did you the biggest favor of all. They showed you exactly how strong you truly are.